Hi, I'm Jonathan Weinberg. This is the second in a series, I hope it will be a series of videos about fountain pens that are peculiar and strange, and you want to know, well, why do they even exist? My first video was about the Pelikan level 5 and the level 65. This is the level 65, and I discuss its very strange um, inking system and question and wonder how it came into being. Today I'm going to talk about um, Lamy, which is the big competitor to Pelikan, and this is a pen that also came out around the same time as the level 65. This is the Lamy Smile, and it's interesting because this too targeted students, young people. Um, we forget in the United States that the fountain pen world in the United States is a kind of niche market for people who almost want to go back to the old days. I don't know how many school kids use fountain pens in the United States, although I did for a little while use them in high school. But in Germany, in particular, in Europe and Asia, kids have to use fountain pens to learn to write. And so that's a huge market for companies. And yet I think also that and I think this was particularly true in the beginning, in the 2000 period, there is, I'm sure, a fear and knowledge that more and more kids have stopped using pens and fountain pens. So how do you keep them? How do you get their attention? And I have already talked about how the level, I think, was sort of designed to be kind of strangely technological and appealing in that sense. And I think the same is true about this pen called the Lamy Smile. It has this really unusual cap that I really love, actually, um, that where it has this turning wheel with little emoticons, which obviously are taken from the computer. Um, and the idea is you turn these little wheels and you make little messages that appear in this window. Um, and uh, and that way you signal to your friends somehow or other that it makes a little message, or you keep a little message to remind you to do things. I don't quite understand with this pen, and there's very little information about this pen, even though it was created in 2006. They don't sell it anymore. But so anyway, there's very little information about it. I'm not quite sure how these little emoticons come together. Like, why would you have numbers in the top and a rooster and a little pig? I'm not quite sure how you signal this, what that means if you said that to somebody else. But probably young people do know. Or my guess also is that if you, with your friends, you would come up with some kind of secret language. Um, you could see immediately if you were a teacher, as I am. I didn't teach little kids, but this would drive you crazy if your students were doing this while you're talking in class and playing with their pens and trying. Also, it's kind of hard to see, even if you're a little kid, no matter how good your eyesight, how people are going to see this right on the cap. So I think it's a formula to have kids not pay attention in class. It seems very obvious to me that that would be the case. But the designers at Phoenix, who also designed the Lamy accent, didn't seem to worry about that. Um, the really interesting thing about this pen is that the original design was not abandoned entirely. It then turned into, as far as I know, I think this may have been the plan all along, it turned into the Nexx pen. Looking at the genealogy of this pen, it seems to have started out with the Smile. I'm not entirely sure, but Andreas Haag at Phoenix designed this pen. Um, then it went to this version of the pen, which has where they took away the wheel, and now all you do is you see Next here, but otherwise the pen is the same. And then it seemed to go to this version, which is called the Lamy Next M. I think is still being sold, but I'm not entirely sure about that. And then what is being sold is this version, which has a rubber cap, doesn't have any window, and doesn't have the little hole for the lanyard that you could have around your neck, which some people do. They carry fountain pens that way. You can see that there is this history. So they didn't waste the whole machinery and the design and everything when it came to making this pen. And it's interesting to compare it to the Lamy Safari. It's a little smaller, and according to Lamy, in terms of the way in which the pen is designed, it's a little bit easier for someone, a young kid, to handle the section. So it's similar, but you see the section's a little smaller and a little more geared, supposedly for kids. The idea is that this will wean you from this pen, which is the Lamy ABC, which is meant for children, right? And that you'll go from this pen to the Safari, right? And you can see as the section gets bigger and bigger, presumably as the grown-up hands get to be bigger and bigger. And the hope is that if you were a kid and you use Lamy, as you're grown up, you're going to continue to use Lamy. And you can see how, when you see the pens like this, you begin to see how they are sort of really belong in a family almost. And that's part of the whole design system at Lamy. Lamy also introduced a metal cap version. This is called the Lamy Nexx M, and you can see the difference here. So the less expensive version has a plastic rubbery clip, and the more expensive version, slightly heavier version, has a metal clip, and it comes together as a certain interesting way in which it's attached. And also you can put a cord and wear this around your neck. That was a kind of nod to the earlier version of the Nexx pen, but you can still find this early version is being sold, but I think that's old stock. When you look at Lamy's website today, and where they're advertising the this version of the pen, which, as you can see, it doesn't have the window, and it's entirely made out of, this part is made out of plastic, this part is aluminum. They talk about the pen as being sort of the second pen that they have for kids, right? The Lamy ABC is geared towards the youngest kids, and it has a nib on it, number A nib, which is a nib that is supposedly better for children, that they can press harder on it, and it has this rubberized grip that really encourages kids to hold the pen in a particular way. It's kind of cute, and it's wood. It looks almost to me like a kind of pen that you might, if IKEA was going to design a pen, it would look like this. It's very light and it's sweet. It's a sweet little pen, and I think it probably sells quite well. The idea was that the Safari would be still too grown up, and this pen, the NEXX, would be the next pen that you would use after you went from this pen, right? After you went from the ABC pen. And also the next pen too, also you can get it with a number A nib or regular medium, broad, fine nibs that Lamy does. All these pens actually use exactly the same kind of nib that is on the Safari. So the idea is that Lamy would start you off very young, and you'd move to this, and then they even advertise it this way. Once you outgrew this pen, then you would move on to the Safari pen, and then eventually even the more expensive pens. They would hook you in a sense. I think that's a very interesting thing. The other thing that's cool about this pen is the body, the barrel is it starts out, well, it depends on where you start, but the top of the pen is round and is very similar, in fact, to a Safari, but the barrel of the pen is actually diagonal, and it's quite interesting and elegant, I think, the way in which the pen is designed to go from round to diagonal. And it's made out of this kind of brushed aluminum. And it feels very nice in the hand. It's very, very light pen. It posts very well, very securely, actually, which is nice, the way that they were able to somehow fit a round top onto the diagonal. So this is quite secure when you push it down. And if you're a grown-up and you're not in class, I kind of love this idea of being able to turn it and personalize it and fiddle with it. It gives you something to do, and that is very different. So I enjoy the Lamy Smile. I wish kind of that it had taken off, but maybe it shouldn't have been aimed at children, or there should be versions of this for grown-ups. I'm amazed in a way at how it has disappeared. It's not that long ago that it was first created, and you can still get it. I mean, obviously, I got this pen. There was a seller on eBay in Netherlands who was selling this pen, I think, for $17 new. So unfortunately, it didn't come with the packaging. The packaging seemed to have been quite nice. I mean, there are a few pictures on the web of the packaging, which was very much geared again, to appeal to kids. So, so this is one of those things. Let me say, I have no idea. I don't talk to people at Lamy, so I have no idea what was in their head. I don't talk to the people at Phoenix Design and Andreas Haag, so I don't know what their particular mission was in making the pen. Clearly, once they had got geared up to make this pen, they decided, like, we're not going to give up on it, and we're going to make use of it. So I think this is a very nice pen. Nexx, I think, is both supposed to appeal to young people. What is your next pen? But I think there was some hope in Lamy that the Nexx would be popular the same way the Safari is, and I don't think, my guess is that hasn't been the case, that it hasn't really taken off. I haven't seen that many people. Actually, I've never seen anybody who uses this pen, while, I know so many people who don't even collect fountain pens, but use the Safari as their everyday pen. I don't think Nexx has had that kind of popularity. Nevertheless, I don't think it was a kind of crazy idea as this one, of getting students to send little secret messages in the middle of class. If other reasons why this was developed or how it was used, let me know. As I said, there's very little information about it on the web, which I think is surprising, given the fact that Lamy is probably in the top 3 most popular. I just made that up, but it's such a popular fountain pen company, and people adore their pens. There isn't even a review on YouTube of this pen, which is surprising. Or if there was, seems to have been deleted. So that, I think, is very cool and interesting. To just finish off this video, I did this a while ago. I have a drawing of an iris, and watercolored iris, that actually I did with one of the Nexx pen, and sort of shows you how it writes. Basically, the way these pens writes is exactly like Lamy Safari. I mean, they use exactly the same nibs. I have tried out the Lamy A nib, and the problem is that I'm not a little kid. It doesn't seem to be that different from the Lamy medium. It doesn't feel that different when I write with it, but I'm assuming that if you're a child, maybe it looks different, and I don't have a child to test it out. That would be another interesting thing, if people want to email me or leave a comment if they have had experience with a little kid writing with the ABC pen. That's this pen, and particularly with an A nib. I bought it because I really wanted to try out that A nib, and as I say, I couldn't really feel that much of a difference between the medium. Okay, as always, please subscribe, and that's the way to support the channel, and it makes me happy. Here's a writing sample of the Lamy Smile. I was only able to get a fine. This is a Lamy blue cartridge, but it will take a standard Lamy converter, and the nib is very much like, it is exactly like a Safari nib. It's relatively smooth, nice and wet. I prefer medium or broad, but this is not scratchy at all, and is more, it's like a Western fine. It would be like a Japanese medium. Brown fox jumps over a lazy dog. You can write really fast with it. It doesn't skip. Very reliable. It's great. Just to give you a point of comparison, this is the Lamy Nexx, the kind that you can buy now with the plastic cap. This is a medium. It is a Lamy black cartridge, and it's nice and smooth. And I'm writing, purposely writing very, very fast. It doesn't skip at all. It's terrific. You know, it has just a bit of feedback, but it's very pleasant. This is why people like the Safari, because you know what you're getting.